Hi, I'm Phoebe, I'm 18 years old and I'm a Year 13 student who won't be sitting my exams this summer. The COVID-19 pandemic has uprooted the lives of many people across the globe, but I wanted to focus on the impact that it's had on my generation, especially A-level students. So I asked my friends and cousins to send me short clips of themselves answering some questions I had about the pandemic. I asked them how their education's been impacted, how they feel about their educational future, and how they've had to adapt their lives in quarantine. I also wanted to know how they felt, what they missed the most, and how they've been spending their time. My first A-level exam should have been on Tuesday the 19th of May, which is why I want to share this experience with the public now. This is a record into what it's like to be locked in as a teenager. The questions I sent people to answer were: how has the pandemic impacted your education? In what ways have you had to adapt your everyday life? How do you feel in 3 words about the current world situation and how it may affect the next year of your life? And what are the benefits that you find have accompanied this pandemic?
I've decided that I'm going to still finish my courses just because they're relevant to what I want to do at university next year. And our teachers are still sending us work to do, along with going on Microsoft Teams to it's almost like a class FaceTime. I'm just going to try and keep myself occupied, but carry on doing my schoolwork in the same amount of hours that I would have done at school. So like today I would have had 3 hours of lessons, so I'm going to do 3 hours of work. But I suppose it's when work runs out, what am I going to do?
There's the prospect of online lessons, which does help, but it means that we have to adapt to a new style of teaching. So that face-to-face interaction normally does help a lot, personally with me especially, in understanding content and being able to ask questions instantly and having feedback, which is continued with online lessons, but it's the interpersonal relationship that's more difficult to achieve.
Quite significantly. Being in Year 13, it means that I don't do my A-levels now. And in terms of curricular schoolwork, that's all done. That's finished. My school life is over. In the summer term, we've been told we're going to do some extracurricular stuff, uni prep and that. But for now, nothing. I'm not really doing anything at all.
I don't know, it's something I never thought would occur. And the more I think about it, the more it kind of frustrates me, because now I can't earn my grades, the results are now out of my hands. And I kind of quite like the satisfaction of when you sit an exam, you know that you've worked up for that moment and then you've got the result through your own work, but now it's just all a bit hazy and unknown, so not really a fan of that. It's all a bit of a mess, which is obviously quite stressful. And it doesn't seem like kind of the proper way to end your education, because obviously secondary school has been 7 years and this is the end. It's very odd.
I'm shocked how all this years of work I've done up to this point have suddenly been disregarded to an extent. How I've been working all this time for these big exams and they've just been cancelled. And I think the sense of accomplishment has been taken away from us. Like when I finished my GCSEs and I got the grades, I felt like I'd achieved something and all this work had been for something. But now if I'm given grades, even if they are good grades and grades I want, in the future I'll be looking back like, did I deserve these? Would I have gotten these? Or even more, could I have done better? And I think that that opportunity has been taken away from us, which I think has been the greatest impact of the virus on us in terms of education.
All my summer plans as well are kind of been thrown up in the air, like interrailing, trips with family, friends on my own, stuff like that, jobs that I'd lined up. Just various things I wanted to do.
But obviously there's way more negatives, not being able to go abroad during summer, not being able to see my friends. It's my anniversary tomorrow, my 7-month anniversary. Neither of us will be able to do anything for that. I might, be able to wave from the street to her window, but that's not really, it's not exactly a grand gesture, is it?
I spoke with Dr. Stephen Blumenthal, a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst here in London. Stephen recently wrote an article for The Telegraph on loneliness and isolation, so it was extremely interesting to discuss the problems that society might be facing during quarantine from a psychological perspective. I asked Stephen 4 questions that I believed to be relevant, and he offered his academic and professional opinion. And I want to know that if you think the cancellation of exams and the lack of closure on our school life will have an effect on people further down the line.
A-levels are, of course, also a really important milestone, and it's so embedded in the culture as well. You know, it's a milestone in one's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting your A-level results and doing the exams. It's a ritual. It's not just an exam. It's a cultural ritual which marks the conclusion of your schooling and what you've been building up to for so long.
Yeah, definitely.
And a kind of, you know, a sort of, you know, a coming of age. And of course, the ritual this year will be very different. So the exam being taken away will, I'm sure, influence a generation.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see what sort of impact it will have. And hopefully it won't be, you know, too severe.
For me personally, it gave me time, or it gives me time to self-reflect. Something that I didn't really have during times when I was just normally out during the week. If I was going to school, getting bogged down in homework would mean that I wouldn't be able to have this time to self-reflect, and going out wouldn't make me have any of this time to self-reflect, which I think has been useful. There's less stress, there's less things to be doing. You can sort of let your day slide by and not really do anything with it. But then again, this could just be a feeling like a calm before the storm.
I didn't actually before this get to spend a lot of time with my mum, even though it's just the two of us. So my mum works full time. Generally we leave around the same time in the mornings, but sometimes I won't see it because she'll have a really early meeting, or I'll have to be in school early or something like that. And she gets home generally around 8 in the evenings, at which point I'm probably quite tired because I've got home and been working. And obviously I'm not gonna, it's not guaranteed I'll be in a bad mood, but I think often I'd see her at the worst time of day. You know, when I get home I'm a bit more relaxed, and then I'll get into work and I'll be relatively chilled out. But I think after work I'm a bit like, I just want to go to sleep.
There's opportunity for everybody to try something new, to do something different, or to even just do what they've been planning on doing for hours, for days, for months. Like, I have a stack of books that I'm now managing to make my way through that I've been meaning to read for months and weeks that I haven't had time to because this year has been so busy. And also just enjoying your own company, I think, is something that a lot of people need to learn to do, that this is given a brilliant opportunity to try.
I feel like our government have dealt with it in the best way possible, delaying the school closures, because I think it is important to remember that, you know, some people do have free school meals and have social workers and things like that. So I think they did it at the right time in the right way. It's just me and my mum, and my mum still has to go to work because she's classed as a necessary primary worker, because she works for the NHS. So my mum's still having to go into work, so it's just going to be me at home.
Mum's been amazing for the community. She's a nurse, so it's not really like it's optional for her. But she's been helping people up the road because I live in a rather elderly community.
So, in terms of the overall effects of loneliness and isolation, I'm talking about all age groups here, what do you think are the main impacts of staying away from people for such long periods of time?
It's like a sort of slow release trauma rather than an acute trauma where something happens and then it sort of dissipates. So it's kind of like it's a sort of steady, slow drip trauma. So people respond to trauma in different ways. We know that heightened levels of anxiety cause one to be in a sort of heightened state of alert, which means other people, close relationships, which is one of the things that sort of can contain that, is put under stress that much more. In fact, one very early theory of trauma was that that related to the cessation of human attachment. So in that moment of trauma, you're really with yourself rather than with other people. So you're cut off from from those who are nearest and dearest. So you've got this state of heightened anxiety in the first place. And then people are either in lockdown on their own and tend to be isolated from human contact from other people. So that presents all sorts of issues to do with loneliness and isolation and impact on mental health.
Disappointed, concerned, but hopeful.
Nervous, intrigued, melancholy.
Anxiety, uncertainty, and maybe, I don't know if unprecedented works.
I feel frustrated, anxious, but also slightly safe.
Cool. I don't mind too much about the exams, you know, like, yeah, that's kind of shit. Like, we've done all this work for it, but like, at the end of the day, we're going to get a number on a piece of paper or a letter, and it's going to be the same or maybe different to what it would have been in the summer, but you're never going to know, and there's no point in thinking what if. But it's just, for me, it was more the emotional stuff that we lost, like, you know, saying goodbye to your favourite teachers. And a lot of people at the end of the year couldn't come in because of, you know, elderly parents or grandparents that they were living with, or siblings that weren't well. So we didn't get to say goodbye to some people. And that really sucks because it's such an abrupt way to end.
Would you say that teenagers and young adults are especially vulnerable to depression and low moods at this time?
Yes, I mean, I suppose on the positive side, your generation is definitely more psychologically minded than previous generations, and there has been a change in the way we approach issues of mental health. At the same time, I think, as I was just saying, that for teenagers particularly, you gain your sense of self, your identity, your group is particularly important. There is something a bit unnatural going on at the moment in which, as a teenager, you're kind of regressing a little bit to an earlier stage of development where you're bonded and connected with your family again, rather than so much with your friends.
I often come home from school, do my work, and then I'm in the house alone. Whereas now I wake up and everyone's there. My dad's working in his room, my mum's working or cleaning, and my sister's doing her uni work, and my brother's off cycling downstairs. But so yeah, it's been nice having everyone around, and I think it's really brought us all together. We've all had this one issue that affects all of us in different ways, but all quite significantly.
There's a lot that, not that you can't do, but it's harder to sort of, you can't just go, you know, pop over to your friend's house when everything's too much, because we aren't really allowed to go out. But there's not been too much change.
Apart from absolutely no social life whatsoever and not going to school, it's not that much of a change. You know, not leaving my room for hours is not that different from the usual. But in terms of like doing chores and stuff, I mean, I have to do that now because I don't have an excuse not to. I'm not at school anymore.
Because I miss my friends, I miss normal life, I miss hanging out with people and going to galleries and the cinema and the theatre, to parks even, just, you know. But now there's so much empty time that I have to try and fill, and not just waste or fill effectively. That, I think, has been a way that I've had to try and adapt.
I've really tried to have a structure to my days. Like, I've made sure that I'm eating like all my meals, getting exercise, and in a way, like, it's kind of forced me to lead a better lifestyle, I guess.
My friend Helena was an unconfirmed case of corona, and I asked her to share her experience. While the elderly are especially vulnerable to the virus, young people currently seem to be asymptomatic, so Helena's experience is interesting contrasted with the other cases people might be familiar with, although the latest news is of a potentially dangerous strain that affects children.
6 days ago, on Tuesday morning, I woke up with a fever. Under normal circumstances, I probably would have just gone into school, but because of the whole coronavirus outbreak, I had to self-isolate. My sister then woke up with a cough. We had been exposed to coronavirus through a family friend, but obviously because the NHS isn't testing you unless you have like full-on pneumonia or you're like pretty high profile, it's not a confirmed case. But odds are it was coronavirus. By the end of the second day, I had started to develop a cough. It was a chesty sort of cough, like it felt like there was something to get out, but it was dry, like nothing was coming out. And I was very tired for those first few days, but mostly fine.
After hearing what my interviewees had to say about their quarantine experience, I was surprised that some people were quite positive about their educational future, despite all of the initial uncertainty after the cancellation of exams. On the whole, the words picked out by people to describe their feelings were quite similar, which affirmed my beliefs. Their experiences made me think more about how much people's experiences differ during this time. For only children, people whose parents are divorced, or children of key workers, their experience during lockdown will be significantly different to people with lots of siblings and both parents working from the same house. A couple of people mentioned things that hadn't occurred to me to ask about, such as holidays and anniversaries. I later went back to ask a few of them more questions to explore their lockdown experiences more deeply. The questions I asked them were: what do you miss the most? What is the first thing you plan to do after lockdown is lifted? How are you feeling a month into lockdown now that you've adjusted? And what does your average day look like?
So, day 42 of lockdown, I've got some questions. So, in terms of what I miss the most, going out, seeing people, absolutely, miss that a lot. As soon as lockdown's lifted, I just plan to go out, see my friends, attend large social gatherings, everything that lockdown isn't. A month into lockdown, also, I don't feel like there's actually that much adjusting. I just feel, it gets more boring, more jarring, but I guess you kind of get used to it. You don't have to kill time in that. But other than that, time just stops going normally. My average day consists of maybe a couple hours of school. We have still some lectures going on, but that's about the only structure. The rest of it is just killing time for 12 or so hours a day. Filled with watching some Netflix, maybe doing some cooking, some reading, stuff like that. But other than that, it's just all kind of blurring into one large big day.
What do I miss most? Well, without any doubt at all, my friends. They mean the world to me, and it's been quite difficult not being able to see them in person, despite talking to them on FaceTime, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever, every day. It's been tough. But also, having grown up in London, living in the city, I also have gotten used to spending a lot of time in the cinema, in the theatres, art galleries, even just sitting on the train, taking the tube places. So I really miss the sort of bustle of the city and existing amongst a lot of people, which has been quite hard. But I still think that without any doubt, my friends are the thing that I miss the most. And therefore, the first thing I'm going to do after quarantine is see them, hopefully spend time with them, maybe a socially distanced picnic or something along those lines. But yeah, definitely seeing my friends is going to be the first thing I do after this is over. A month into quarantine, I guess I'm definitely less sad about the whole situation, sort of less self-pityingly miserable. But it's just very odd because I was thinking about it the other day. Technically, this week would have been the week that I started my IB final exams. And it's really odd to think that the whole week all I've been doing is online lessons, sort of reading, watching films, cooking and baking, taking long walks and things like that. I have not at all been in the headspace that I might have been in if life was normal. So that was quite a shock to realise. But I think I've adjusted. I'm reconciled to the situation. I'm trying to make the best of what I've been given, which is a lot of free time, which is something I haven't had in about 2 years. So that's nice. And an average day for me is, well, given that my school has started online lessons, and despite not having exams, I still have my full timetable of lessons to attend. So I'm quite busy with that from 9 till 4. And then after that, it's reading books, doing homework, sort of spending time with my family, which is nice because I'm planning on going to uni in September or whenever universities open up again. So it's nice to be able to spend that kind of time with my family before I leave. So it's been an interesting experience, just for sure.
So now it's the 2nd of May and we're about 6 weeks into lockdown. I'd probably say that the thing that I miss the most at this stage is probably just being able to go out and see my friends whenever I want. Just go to the park, go to shopping, go for a drink, you know, all of the stuff that we took for granted before with friends and family. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do after lockdown will probably, even if it doesn't involve going somewhere, just going to someone's house or even just going to the park to see my friends. I think I'll probably see my friends first because lots of my friends don't live locally. They live on the other side of Leeds to me, so I haven't been able to see any of them. So yeah, because of that, and I think because of being in the house all the time, I'm feeling quite anxious at the moment because I'm on my own quite a lot as I'm an only child. So I don't really like being in the house on my own all the time. It's quite lonely and when you don't have anything to do, you can feel quite anxious when you're on your own all the time. And my mum's a key worker as well. So I'm not gonna lie, my average day doesn't consist of much. I get up around 11 o'clock. Try to do something productive throughout the day, like baking. I've finished my finished my chemistry course and my maths course now. So I'm on the end of that. I have been doing work though. Sometimes I do some sewing, some art. Just try to fill my days up so I'm not doing anything. And then on an evening I normally call my friends, do some quizzes and stuff. So yeah.
When it comes to what I miss most, I'd have to say my freedom of movement first. Obviously, I still miss my friends, and as soon as this is over, I'm probably going to see them quite quickly. But I miss my freedom of movement. In my spare time, I'm quite an avid photographer and filmmaker, so being able to go wherever I want and take videos or take photos is something that I really miss. Once this is all over, first thing I'm going to do is definitely go to the barbers. I miss my barber so much. My hair has gone absolutely crazy since this began, and I was putting off going for a haircut just before lockdown started and the barber closed. So it's safe to say my hair's now got a mind of its own and I can't wait to get it cut. Now that I've adjusted, I'd say that I'm much more accepting of decisions that have been made by the government because they seem to be working, at least in the most part. Social distancing seems to be working, and London, at least I know for a fact, has passed its peak. So the numbers of cases and the numbers of deaths are much lower than they were before. So that's a success, and I'm still hopeful, still maintaining hope that this will be over soon so we can all get back to what was the old normal. In my average day, I make space for 3 things. So that would be work, exercise, and recreation. So in the morning, I'll usually get some work done. I'll do some schoolwork because my school is still setting work, or I will do some editing because I'm helping to make this. Helping to edit the doc at least. I'll also have some recreation, so whether it be playing some video games or whether it'll be watching a film or watching a series on Netflix or something, I'll have some space for that. And finally, I'll do some exercise, usually in the late afternoon towards the evening. I'll go for a bike ride, or I'll do some basic exercise in the garage with some equipment we have out there. And yeah, just the main aim is to come out of this better than I went in. So focusing a lot on self-improvement there too.
Going to university and leaving school has always been something that scares me quite a bit, but now especially since school has ended so abruptly. But I think I'm more prepared for life after school, having lived through something as significant as a global pandemic. My emotions have ranged from feeling anxious and worried and bored to feeling hopeful and relaxed, and I genuinely don't think there's one word to describe my time during lockdown because it has fluctuated so much. At first it was difficult for my family to adjust to cooking and cleaning rotas, but we did, and my dog gives us a reason to go outside. For that I am grateful, but there have been periods of time where I haven't gone outside for several days, which isn't the best thing. I think now I've found more things to keep me busy, and I'm trying to get through as many projects and things like that as possible, just so that I'm not wasting my time. I like to be productive, and obviously I'm having some time for relaxation, but I do like using my time productively. As many of my friends have also said, this period has gifted us with all this extra free time, which especially for year 13s, because we'd otherwise be spending it revising for our exams. And I think it's a blessing in disguise in a way, because I think a lot of us just go through life and don't usually take a break to stop and reflect or give ourselves some self-love or some time just for us. And I think this has obviously given us all this extra free time, so people are thinking, oh well, what can I do to fill that free time? Maybe I'll just take some time for myself and reflect. And I think that's possibly the silver lining of this lockdown situation. I've told people to try and be as positive as you can, because if we're going to stay inside for who knows how long, we may as well be happy and worry-free while doing it.